Welcome to the Full Tactical Range by Range Systems. I'm Beau, lead instructor for defensive mindset training, and this is your drill of the week. In this week's drill of the week, I want to take you through one of the most neglected things for new shooters and one of the most need to recover things for advanced shooters, and that's trigger discipline. Trigger discipline is the ability to run the trigger correctly on your firearm and to really make this finger, the trigger finger, do what we want it to do, not what it wants to do. When we start to get new shooters, and I see new shooters all the time, and I see advanced shooters doing this all the time too, and you can, if you ever show up to a defensive mindset class, you'll hear me saying it all the time on the range. Last trigger reset. Don't forget the last reset. Make sure you get your last reset. Don't forget your last reset. And the reason why I'm saying that is I'm trying to get my shooters, my defenders to keep working on the idea of being disciplined with that trigger at all times. Because the more disciplined they are, the more effective their shooting downrange is going to be, especially when it counts. When we talk about trigger finger discipline, there's one error in particular that I'm really concerned about when working with new shooters. And that one is what we like to call whack-a-mole finger. So what whack-a-mole finger would look like is that I would take my finger, put it on the trigger, slack would go out, so they would follow me all the way through that. And then what they would do is they would break the shot and their finger will fly off the trigger like this. So they'll go bang, whoo, like, oh my gosh, my finger's on the trigger, it has to come off. No. Instead, what we have to get them to do is to actually be okay with, I pull the trigger to the rear and I can leave it there. And then I make the finger go forward for the reset, not just this reflexive finger fly off the trigger. What we start them out with is 2 drills, and I'm gonna build you into a set of 3 here that I work with my advanced shooters when they need to work on this. So the 3 drills that we're gonna work on is the single round finger to the rear drill, the 2-round drill, and the burst fire drill. Let's get started. The first drill, just like it sounds, is called the single fire finger to the rear drill. And the idea how this works is we've got a target ballpark at 15 or 30 feet. It makes really no difference. My center mass, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper for target. And I'm gonna load 1 round into the magazine. And then what I'm gonna do is I will set the person up or set up my shooter in the perfect shooting fundamentals position. So make sure they concentrate on all that body alignment, make sure everything is absolutely perfect. And then finger on the trigger, slack out. And their goal with this now is they're gonna slowly increase the pressure and keep the finger held to the rear. It doesn't get to go forward, doesn't fly off the finger, there's no whack-a-mole. Bang, and the finger stays in place. Now, they literally can say out loud, reset. They'll reset the finger, they'll fake it because of course the slide will be locked to the rear, and then finger off the trigger, assess, and 360-degree check. For new shooters, this one is absolutely critical to do with brand new shooters. 1, to give them confidence that they can actually do this and the gun's not gonna fly out of their hand, especially if they're a little timid. And then 2, that we can get their finger right from the beginning to do what's right, not do what it wants to do, which of course is gonna be to fly off the trigger after the shot. The next drill is the 2 rounds in the magazine drill, or if you're further along, could be 10 rounds. The general gist is the same. What we have to do is connect the first part of the trigger cycle to the second part of the trigger cycle. So the first part of the trigger cycle is slack out, pressure to the shot going off. The third part of the trigger cycle is actually the reset back to slack out position. And we need to get people to do that on live rounds in a comfortable way so that they don't accidentally set off the firearm. One of the things that we'll see new shooters do is they'll go to slack out, they'll shoot, but then when they reset, they'll go to where they're just touching the trigger, which means the next shot that they do will be a slap. They'll just pull it all the way out, bang. Or they'll lose contact with the trigger entirely and do it again. And that slapping will throw rounds all over the place. It'll emphasize crushes and flinches, all of which are a big problem. So instead, what we have to get them to do is to get to the slack out position and be comfortable in doing it. The way to do that is you put 2 rounds in the magazine, you set them up, you get them into perfect shooting fundamentals position, same target setup as before. Finger on the trigger, we go slack out. We're gonna slowly increase the pressure until the gun goes bang, and again, finger stays to the rear. Hold it back. Now, we say in our brains, reset, which means it's gonna go forward past the click of the mechanism resetting and then back to the stiff spot of slack out or stage position on that trigger. Now we're gonna hold that position for a second, feel where it is. Finger now off the trigger, assess, and then pull it back for 360 check. Again, the idea here is that every shot is incredibly disciplined. The finger does exactly what we want it to do. Here's how it looks. Third drill is what we call burst fire drill. The way this one works is you could have 10 rounds in a magazine, you could have the magazine be all the way full. But what we want to do now is we want to take that cycle of a trigger press. So slack out, slow steady pressure to surprise break, reset to slack out. And we want to start to go through the cycle faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And specifically the part to work on to get faster is actually the reset portion. That piece is the one to go quick. We want to try and keep the upper portion to be fairly consistent, because if we start trying to jam on the gun going bang, at least initially, what we'll just start to do is we'll make the gun go off, which ends up contributing to crushing and flinching, which we don't want. But going through and making fast resets and consistent increase in pressure to brakes will help to keep that shot from going crazy on us. So set yourself up. You can do full magazine or just do a magazine of 9 or 10. And again, target downrange 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Finger on the trigger, slack out, perfect shooting fundamentals. Slowly increase the pressure, bang, reset. Slowly increase the pressure, bang, reset. Slowly increase the pressure, bang, bang, bang. And you start to get the idea, faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until you're at your top speed. When you're at that top speed, remember we got the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. If our shooting fundamentals are correct, we should still not drop any rounds off that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And you would work yourself down to whatever your top speed is. So for me, it might be, 18s or 15s. If you're a competitive shooter, it might be 14s or 10s. If you're a defensive shooter, I really don't need you to go any faster than quarters, 0.25s. But you might start at 7.5s and then work your way down to 2.5s, keeping every single shot on that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So here's how this drill looks. By developing good trigger discipline, we make every other skill or drill that we do using a firearm become more effective. Because every time the firearm goes off, we're manipulating that trigger. If we do it poorly, we get poor results. If we do it well, we get good results. And having the discipline from the beginning, or realizing we've got a problem as an advanced shooter and coming back and fixing the problem, will help us to bust through glass ceilings and reach places as a shooter that we hadn't been able to reach before. So go nice and slow, take your time, get a couple of boxes of ammo and go through this. Sometimes I go through this with shooters a lot. But this sort of nice and slow and steady work becomes really advantageous for future training, development, and drill work. And of course, if you can't do it live, this one works fabulously dry with a SIRT pistol. If you don't own a SIRT pistol, go to nextleveltraining.com. Use sealed in the checkout for a big discount. They are the best training tool ever made, and you need one for your training, self-defense training practice. And we'll see you for the next drill of the week. I'm Beau.